Hello, lovely viewers, welcome back to our channel. We are back again with a new knowledgeable and entertaining video. If you are new here, please hit the subscribe button and be a part of our family. Top 10 must-watch horror movies. To Haunt Your Dreams Part 3. Based on the Stephen King novella of the same name, 1922 stars Thomas Jane as Wilfred James, a Nebraskan farmer at odds with his wife, Arlette, Molly Parker, over the land he considers their livelihood. Things get real when Arlette wants to sell the acreage and move to the city, but Wilfred wants no part of his spouse's plans, so he instead decides to murder her with the assistance of his teenage son, Dylan Schmid. With the crime in the bag, local authorities become suspicious of Mrs. James's disappearance, forcing the guilty son into a state of hysteria as the psychological weight of his misdeed weighs heavy on him. Powered by a compelling story and strong performances from its core cast, 1922 may not have the dazzle and clout of heavyweight Stephen King adaptations like It or The Shining, but it's an excellent book-to-screen entry you won't want to miss.
Paura.
It's a good movie.
Elisa, Matilda Anna Ingrid Lutz, isn't having the greatest days of late. On her way to Calabria with folks she's never met before, her travels are arranged through a rideshare app. The RV ends up getting wrecked and one of the passengers injured. What's more peculiar is that when Elisa awakens the next morning, she discovers that she and her fellow travelers are stranded in the woods. Soon after, the members of a mysterious cult descend on the wayward companions, forcing everyone to fight for their lives. From the writer, director of Nightcrawler, Dan Gilroy brings us another otherworldly Jake Gyllenhaal vehicle in the form of Velvet Buzzsaw, an elevated horror flick with wily, satirical undertones. Gyllenhaal plays Morph Vandewalt, an infamously discerning art critic, when Josefina, Zawe Ashton, Mort's assistant, stumbles upon a collection of revered paintings by a deceased artist known as Vetril Dees, Alan Mandel. She brings the works to the attention of her employer and an art gallery owner, Rene Russo. But it turns out that Vetril's paintings have a sinister life after death agenda, and they unleash supernatural mayhem onto all those who come into contact with the artisan's inspired creations. A funny and gory deep dive into the world of elitist and high-browed art, Velvet Buzzsaw runs off the rails one or two times. But the end result is an ultimately original narrative and an ensemble of excitable roles honed by arresting talents.
Listen to me. We are going on the trip now. It's going to be rough.
After a band of terrorists hijack a transatlantic flight, their goal is to collect a handsome ransom. What they weren't expecting was that two of the onboard passengers possess a dark gift that could spell big trouble for both the travelers and their captors. If you can imagine the claustrophobic thrills of red-eye crossing paths with the vampire subgenre, you're halfway home to unpacking the tantalizing horrors of Blood Red Sky, a great horror film set in the sky. When Ambar, Christina Rodlow, takes up residence at a boarding house in Cleveland, her new living quarters prove troublesome. Encountering unplanned money issues, Ambar has no choice but to confront her landlord, a mysterious man named Red, Mark Manchak. A confrontation that plummets Ambar down a rabbit hole of ancient, sacrificial terrors. A stunning feature debut from director Santiago Mengini, No One Gets Out Alive is a visceral and haunting film that effectively leans on genre tropes to tell its story of a single fish in a big, terrifying new city. In Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, B-movie chills meet modern-day, reality-driven horrors when a group of unsuspecting teenagers arrive at a wilderness retreat where ditching phones, tablets, and laptops is the name of the game. Settling into this temporary way of life, it just so happens that an inventive serial killer is stalking the campground, forcing the tech-less heroes to do battle without the aid of their treasured devices. Writer-director Bartosz M. Kowalski serves up some familiar genre fare with Nobody Sleeps, creating enough of a stir in the horror community to warrant a sequel to the original tale. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a franchise that has seen many peaks and valleys through its near 50-year saga. The latest entry, 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is a direct sequel to the 1974 original film, ignoring all the other titles in the franchise. Our story follows Dante, Jacob Latimore, a social media influencer, and his close-knit band of friends, arriving in a small Texas town that they plan to gentrify, much to the chagrin of the remaining locals. What the posse of pals doesn't plan for is the emergence of a chainsaw-wielding brute that isn't ready to vacate a dilapidated orphanage. While it lacks some of the tension-building and sensible character motivations of other chainsaw flicks, this straight-to-Netflix iteration brings bold slasher sensibilities, exciting camera work, and an inventive, if not challenged, storyline to the fold.
She practices the old ways. Yes. My name is Christina Lopez.
In The Old Ways, Bridget Cali Canales stars as Christina, a journalist operating in the deep rainforests of Veracruz. When the reporter is captured by a suspecting witch doctor and forced into a number of sacred rituals to exorcise the evils inside her, Christina must fight against her captor with everything she's got in order to stay alive. A unique take on the typical exorcism subgenre, The Old Ways delivers solid chills and surprises by effectively leaning on its close-quartered jungle environments and primitive religious practices.
This isn't you.
In co-writer, director Richard Shepard's The Perfection, the pursuit of music is the burning heart of the story, an artistic perdition that the film's cast of characters is forced to reckon with. Allison Williams stars as Charlotte, an esteemed cellist who had to leave a prestigious music school in Boston to care for her dying mother. Upon returning, she becomes envious of a new student named Lizzie, Logan Browning, and the deep-seated jealousy leads to a loss of vital limbs, among other things. Bold in its visual execution and narrative beats, The Perfection has a wicked agenda, and as audience members, all we can do is attempt to enjoy the onslaught. A fairly easy feat considering the great tone, pacing, and performances. From the writer, director of Nightcrawler, Dan Gilroy brings us another otherworldly Jake Gyllenhaal vehicle in the form of Velvet Buzzsaw, an elevated horror flick with wily, satirical undertones. Gyllenhaal plays Morph Vandewalt, an infamously discerning art critic, when Josefina, Zawe Ashton, Mort's assistant, stumbles upon a collection of revered paintings by a deceased artist known as Vetril D's, Alan Mandel. She brings the works to the attention of her employer and an art gallery owner, Rene Russo. But it turns out that Vetril's paintings have a sinister life after death agenda, and they unleash supernatural mayhem onto all those who come into contact with the artisan's inspired creations. A funny and gory deep dive into the world of elitist and high-browed art, Velvet Buzzsaw runs off the rails one or two times. But the end result is an ultimately original narrative and an ensemble of excitable roles honed by arresting talents.
He's asked